Well, folks, sorry to be late.
Including.
Okay, we have a quorum.
We do, Chairman.
Thank you. Having a quorum, then I'll call the meeting to order and turn our attention to the first item of business. That is minutes of the previous meeting of March 10th. They were included in the packet that was circulated. Any comments or questions? Seeing or hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve them. Make a motion to approve. Then move to approve. We need a second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Or raise your hand if you're on.
Kim Jones is actually absent today.
I'm sorry.
Kim Jones, she's traveling today, so she won't be live.
So. We'll put up, we're gonna put, do we have a lot of our information on you to put up?
Yes.
So in the absence of the treasurer, I will lead us through this. First item is the $8,088 for Anshin. And then the second one for Anshin is $6,996. Anshin, of course, is the independent compliance officer. Two invoices for Bond, Shannick and King. One for $4,514. The second one, that's the total, excuse me, that's the total for them. Lowry Construction Solutions, that's the people who provide our insurance coverage and our insurance analysis. It's $150. The Chase Construction Services, who is one of the construction managers now active on the project. It's $73,036. Total for with the Chase, there's several invoices, you see them all there. The total for them is $174,527. For Savin, there's one invoice, it's $475,400. That's construction manager, project manager. For SWBR, one of the architects working on the projects, that's $136,850. Watts Engineering, another of the engineers who are, excuse me, architects, their case involved. Two invoices totaling $75,500. Total claims for this month, $862,427. I would say I wasn't as good as Kim is at it, but I got through it.
Watts was 75.9.
Thanks. Any questions or comments? There are no unusual expenses in that group. Hearing or seeing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve it. Second. Move second. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Raise your hand. Okay, carried. Second item is an amendment to Labella contract kitchen or kitchen consultant. Maybe, Captain, you can give us a little background for why this is coming up now.
So, the modification to Labella's agreement is to secure the services of Roth Consulting Group. That's a woman-owned business enterprise as a food service sub-consultant to Labella at Padilla High School at the Franklin campus. It's coming up now because before we were hoping to put an RFP out for food service consultancy. The scope was so limited, and after discussion with the school district's facilities department, we figured it was more efficient to do this through Labella. The deliverables will be used as the food service and kitchen equipment standards for the applicable phase 3 projects requiring such equipment, including coordination with each design team at 4 of the 6 projects. Also includes pre-inspection, post-inspection checklists developments towards the Monroe County Department of Health approval. So I do have a memo on the screen for the board to see what the recommendation is about, and the details of the proposal are in the packet.
Comments or questions about this? This actually winds up being savings. It looks more here, but in total, we'll spend less than if we had a major consultant for the process. And some of it has to do with the fact, I believe, happened that the district has developed standards here. So we can use their standards and not have to develop our own. Okay. Questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? I did that without getting a motion. You're being very cooperative and I appreciate it. Maybe that's a little too much. So I'll entertain a motion to approve it. Then move. Is there a second? Okay, we'll try again. Everybody in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carries. Thank you. Okay, the schematic design for Padilla at Franklin.
Mr. Chair, I would like to ask Terry LoConte, the operations manager, and Troy Williams of Labella to present the schematic design of Padilla Franklin Junior prior to our submission to the State Education Department.
Start here, just refresh everybody memory as to what this is. Let's stage it.
So the schematic design phase is really the beginning of the detailed design. We've already gone through program verification where we took what was in the strategic plan, the scope that was described in there. The architect, Troy Williams from Labella, met with all of the different user groups and school chiefs and so forth, collecting information about what should be in the project also. And then through a process of estimating and decision-making came down to what the project should be in a concept statement. That scope then starts getting developed into more detailed design. And that's this stage here. This is the stage where we would also consider a preliminary submission to SCD. SCD tests the calculation of building aid units, which is the basis for developing aid for the project. So it's the beginning of really formulating the project. Okay. I'm gonna turn this over to Troy. That's the intro on where we are and where we're gonna be going.
Right, make sure you get in that microphone. Wait, thank you.
So we'll continue today by refreshing everyone's memory on what the scope of work for the project is. We'll go through the project planning, as it's occurred, and then we'll take a look at some of the, schematic design drawings that are in the set that will be submitted to the State Education Department. Outline next steps and just a quick review of the schedule. So scope of work at Padilla. 500,000 square foot building, almost. We have a large amount of roof reconstruction, heavy infrastructure upgrade. That is what we say is the bread and butter for this project, encompassing a large percentage of the scope. Ceilings and lightings upgrades on the interior of the building, moving from the existing fluorescents to LED lighting, these finishes and so on inside the building spaces. Facade, masonry reconstruction, limited masonry repointing, reconstruction at the roof level mostly and sporadically around the building exterior as needed. Safety and security upgrades throughout the building. This would be replacement of interior doors and door hardware to include new electronic hardware, so which can use key fobs going into the classrooms. Within the classrooms themselves, we'll have new ceilings and lighting, some selective finishes and millwork upgrades. A lot of the heavy reconstruction or full, as I say, full gut of the spaces is centered around the art rooms, the CTE program, and the science classrooms. Within the corridors themselves throughout the building, we're looking at new finish upgrades to follow behind the MEP, the mechanical, electrical, plumbing scope of work. In addition, we have some food service reconstruction within the kitchen cafeteria, the food service line. So there's some minimal equipment replacement there to gain some efficiencies for lunch times. Then to support all the scope of work shown there, we've got some regulated building materials that would need to be abated, so to speak, as needed within space, and then just very minimal site work for pavement replacement. I think really heavy duty. So following our review and verification of the program, our next step is to complete project planning. We're in the process currently of reviewing the test fit school, Marshall High School, that the students from Padilla will be transitioning to during the construction period. The design team has done their walkthrough of Marshall and are now evaluating the space as they exist there with the program for Franklin to see what it yields in terms of being able to accomplish that. So here's a quick overview of the site, proposed site plan. You'll see there's some small gray hatched areas. So not a lot of work proposed on site currently. Building plans. As we go from the lower level all the way through the fourth floor, you will see different areas highlighted. And there they range from heavy rehabilitation, light rehab, structural rehabilitation, to the toilet rooms, which will be fully reconstructed.
And it really, the structural rehab that they're showing isn't so much of rehabilitating the existing building as it is. There's going to be part of the mechanical scope is spreading mechanical rooms and air handlers throughout the building. So in the rooms that are being taken for mechanical rooms, they need to reinforce the floors for that equipment. That's what most of that is.
Terry, are these roof or outside
They're inside.
Internal.
That's the reason for having to support the floors with structural steel.
what we've done is we've stacked the mechanical rooms, vertically across the floors. Um, This gives us huge efficiency.
It's upgrade at the back, but it's the green rooms or the mechanical rooms. They depict the, the 4 points of intersecting corridors all the way up through the building to locate those rooms.
Are they independent for each floor? So each floor is independent in terms of equipment?
In most cases, yes. Or, very similar in scope of work. Arrangement. The design team along with site construction management is going through right now, reviewing constructability of how we would best achieve, vast amount of work that needs to take place there, just the sheer labor of bringing materials and waste in and out of the building. Who's the placement scope for?
So the estimate we had at this stage, started out at about 15 million over budget. Now, on a $112 million budget, being 50 million over isn't catastrophic. And it's not to the extent where we wanted to start looking at reducing and eliminating scope to get down the budget, because we're so early in the process, we're still carrying contingencies for things that the estimators are not seeing in design, that the design for those systems, we still wanted to be able to develop. So everybody on the team thought that the best strategy for maintaining the budget was to determine some items that could go on an add alternate list, so that the base estimate would come in at budget. And that's crucial for the SCB submission. As you've been hearing time and time again on these submissions, we have to prove to SCB how we are at budget and 95% aidable. So that's the method we do here. And then as design progresses, as some of that contingency gets released, if it's available, items can be absorbed back into the base scope. And then, of course, once we bid it, there's also the opportunity, if the market allows, get good pricing, some alternates can be accepted to make part of the project also. So that's the method we were using to get and manage the budget.
So next steps, the design continues. We begin fleshing out those details some more. Gives the estimators a bit more confidence in what they're seeing and being able to put dollars towards, so that we can start taking down our design contingency. Like I mentioned, our next deliverable is a 25% construction document. The estimating and scope reconciliation will occur at each phase, and continue to go on. We will continue to work with the facilities team to identify interior finishes and product selections that go along with the district standards, and outline any efficiencies that can be gained within the infrastructural systems themselves. So here we are, approximately SED submission to the schematic design submission to SED. And then the next step, June 30th, would be a 25% CD submission. That would follow to final approval and in the front there.
Question, comment? On each floor, then, how does the air handling work? You have independent systems that are right, not much on the roof. How do you move the air through that?
So on each floor where we're recapturing space that was probably, or usually a classroom or so, the mechanical rooms are facing towards the courtyard. Along the exterior of that wall, we have louver intakes Everything is connected back to either the chiller plants on the boiler room roof or boilers in the boiler room area. And then ductwork would then be distributed from those mechanical routes to the adjacent spaces within each quadrant that we've set up.
Therein why the building is ripped up.
So,
Yeah.
And the one advantage, the real advantage to the system that the district likes in the chill beam system is that, it recirculates a lot of the existing air and only reintroduces fresh air as it's needed by code. So that it reduces, compared to a traditional air conditioning system with different types of terminal units, the size of the ductwork going down the hall feeding all these units is much smaller. So for a renovation, it's a much better system.
Okay, other questions or comments? Big building and it's a big project. We're asking at this point for you to approve this submission. This will be as Terry described, will soon be one of the submissions that we make to SED. Keep the process at that building going. We've shifted our schedule a little bit to do this kind of work on the Franklin building simply because it is so large that we feel like we can't get behind on it because of the size of the project. Hearing nothing else, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the submission. That move. Need a second? Second. Other comments or questions? Hearing none, that moves us on to the insurance issue. Thank you. Okay, we'll cover that, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
We have to vote.
We didn't vote?
We just,
Jeez,
we just did with Ron and Jacob.
pardon me?
You get that motion, but
You get the motion.
Oh,
Well,
we're all good.
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
What the hell? I'm rushing this today. I'm not apologize. So all those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Good. See, I knew it. All right, Pepin, you're dealing with an insurance issue.
Yes, if the board recalls, we had put together an insurance roadmap for consultants and contractors to quickly know what the requirements are for the entire program. We worked with Longshore and King, the board's general counsel, and law lead to review the recommendations and modifications to that roadmap. And Mr. Chairman, I'd like Greg McDonald to offer comments on what we've done.
Yeah, thanks, Pepin. So these are the insurance requirements that will be in the RFPs for the professional service providers, as well as in the bidding documents for the contractors. So the few tweaks from phase 2 relative to, per project requirements, so you're not sharing limits on multiple projects for your contractors. A reduction in the medical expense from, excuse me, which we understand from law is industry standard, and that's what, the Pepin's team, and we've done with law, just to ensure that these are industry standards. And really essentially to prevent constant waivers requests from certain things, so lowering the requirements for like janitorial services and things like that, but essentially, sufficient levels and coverage to protect the board and the rest of the additional insurance on the construction phases of the project. I'm happy to answer any questions if anybody has any limits to the coverages.
I have a question. Greg, you're saying about insurance.
Yeah, Raleigh's the insurance consultant, so they were consulted.
Right,
relative to
right,
these.
so they're on board.
That's right, that's correct.
Yes, and there was a number of modifications and emails back and forth. Is right here with Rich Stoffel. If you want, Ron, we can certainly share.
No, I just want to make sure.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
I'm good.
Anything else? No? If not, any questions or comments about this? I think that was a comment. I think someone sneezed.
Hmm.
Okay, Let's see if I can get it right this time. I've done it every way you can do it, so it'll have to be right. Okay, then I'm going to entertain a motion to approve the insurance outline as submitted. Move and seconded. Any further questions or comments? Here, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Stefan, you back up.
Yes, sir. The next item is the activation of the program manager's optional and additional services. I've had several conversations with the school district, in particular with Scott, as far as what's required for move management, IDC coordination with the Gilbane team, program office support, and community engagement. Again, we've been working with the board's general counsel on how this should be done, whether it would be an amendment to our contract. But in talking to the board clerk, Kimberly Mitchell, and BSK and Chairman Richards, I was told that there was no need for an amendment, but yet a board approval to authorize activation of the service. The first one is the community engagement, marketing, communication, and social media tools to pretty much help the board with not only the annual report to the stakeholders, the state education department, the governor's office, the assembly and the senate, but also to have a program website that is current, that is managed properly. And in the absence of the business opportunity program, the only way to do this was to an optional service that the board would accept. The other one is the IT-MIS support to support the telephony for the program office, the web services, wireless access, and a Zoom room that's going to be created here to make the work of the board more efficient. And part of it is activation of a sub-consultant we have, such as UBS, to manage the IT-MIS for the RSMP for the life cycle of the Phase 3 program. The next one is the IDC coordination, integrated interdisciplinary document coordination, which is something Gilbane provides. They provided it as a base service in Phase 1 and Phase 2. But for Phase 3, it was an optional service. So the board would have to authorize us to provide that service using Gilbane to do an enhanced, what we call a not only coordination of the documents, but it's a Terry, if you could just explain a little bit better as far as what the IDC is involved.
So it's inter-document coordination. It's a review, call it a secondary check to make sure that the drawings are complete. Information in them matches from equipment to equipment, from system to system. One example may be making sure that the right service, voltage, and amperage is going to each piece of equipment so that you don't experience change orders after a bid. They also look at maintenance of the systems, making sure that, where the service side of the equipment is, there's enough room to pull coils, to change filters, so that again, you're not trying to solve those problems after it's been hung and have it discovered. It's being discovered, noted, having the design fixed if any of it's notated, and put out to bid that way, so that it's all done during design, so you're not having to experience it while you're trying to finish construction and result in change order. In a nutshell, that's what the summary of that is.
And this is in addition to the constructability review that the CM would be providing.
Right, and we do our own too here as PMs also, so.
But that the two things. How long would it take to rank these services?
Correct me wrong, some of it had to start already. We've done it at risk because it was needed to be done. And once we're in schematic, it'll then have to be activated. As far as the program office, as you can see, we had to bring in a consultant. We have not issued a contract to them yet until you, the board, approves those services, but we are ramping up already.
Second question, is any part of this tied to, or in your office, Terry's talking, there's systems, when we get the HVAC system, the drive system, you're gonna train, you know, make this individual. This is not part of it.
No,
Okay.
no, the training and everything is part of the commissioning
Okay.
services that we worked through earlier.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you.
But of course, we'll assist, the commissioning agents in the entire set of services. So that's part of the IDC, and part of it also requires coordination of issues during the design phase, identify their impact on the program schedule cost. That's part of the IDC. It's more of a constructivity review, enhanced, but it involves the estimators, engineers, everybody on their Rhode Island team to provide that service. The next category is the move management, coordination, inventory, and FF&E procurement support. We've been talking to the district about how to support them with management and coordination of the building inventory systems, assist the school principals with their move matrix when we empty the schools out, so the projects to be modernized can be done while the kids are out in their temporary space. This involves also hosting seminars to inform the staff of logistics around their relocation. We would create a scope of work for the movers. We would hire packers to help the teachers pack their contents in the summer months before we move them out. The tagging, the procurement of those services. There's also the technology consultants work in coordination with the IMT department to make sure the technology items are properly moved. We also plan on creating a complete database of every FF&E item for the phase 3 schools, which would serve the district in locating where stuff, equipment, and furniture are, for whether in a temporary space or permanent space. We also are organizing a FF&E move forum, and Terry and Lori are assisting me with that. And a number of other things that are identified in our exhibit B2. In essence, we need the board to approve this before we consult with the service.
These particular services were among the items listed in the contract with Pepin's group. 7. They were done that way because we weren't sure we were going to use them all. And there are others that we may use or may not use. So they were in the agreement, and also had a number attached to them. There was a value attached to them. So when we elect to use these services, we have a fixed number and a fixed agreement in place. They just get added on to the regular agreement. I think there's some chance with respect to the last item, the move management, that number will go down. The district itself is engaged in some of this work, some of this movement work. We're in the process of figuring out who's going to do exactly what here, and make sure we don't duplicate the effort, and then apply the number of hours that's appropriate to arrive at the final number of pay. But as you can tell from the description that went on, it's essential part of the process, and you got to get going on it. And if you wait till the last moment, show up at the front door of the box and say, "Hey guys, we're going to go across town to another school," you can imagine the disaster that you created for yourself. So we need to get a hold of it instead of ahead of it, and then be ready to go when the process starts. Okay, other comments or questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion to approve the items as submitted. Okay, only one guy has place here. Been moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Okay. Next item with respect to school 9.
Yes, for school 9, again, this is part of the legislative or statutory requirements to submit at certain segments, 25%. And I'm gonna ask, is Rick Stofeld to make this presentation on behalf of the program management team and the office.
Just like Terry and Troy briefed on the deal, I have good news on school 9. That is that we are on track for the master schedule. And we're also on budget. My interest today is to address completion of the most recent state education department milestone. You might recall that in the months of November and January, we talked about the program verification and also the schematic design. The architect of record briefed those at the time. And basically we told you what the status was. We went through program verification, which was establishing that we were justifying the strategic plan. But we're also taking into account comments that had come in from the district as well as community members on what they wanted to see in the schools. We took those into account, did an estimate at that time, and found that we were a little bit over budget. Between the program verification and schematic design, we took some things out. And then we fortunately found we could, once we got into the design, we could put some things back in. So I reported to you back in January that strategic for the schematic design was on budget. And we have to make, as Pepin mentioned a minute ago, we have to make a number of submissions to SCD with each of these schools. Where we have made the 25% construction drawings submission as of the 14th of March, which was on schedule. In that submission, it was a refined design for schematic, which we took and put some specifications and drawings, specs together. We started essentially to take the schematic design, which was the overview, and put some meat on the bones. In that, we engaged with Chase Construction to help us with estimating, and they did a fantastic job. Not that the budget came out but the way we wanted it, but they did a great job. They were very thorough, and we felt that we got an estimate that really was something that you could use and was a good milestone. So next, we're proceeding at this point to 50% construction drawings. And again, these will progress as we go along here. And it's essentially just the design matures. So we do have a plan in place. We are still evaluating some concerns that people did have as far as wanting to change things around. But we still feel we are going to be on target with the budget and the submission of 50%. Next slide, please. So I mentioned to you a moment ago that we had submissions to SED at these two dates. Also, we had come before the board on these two dates and presented both the verification phase plan as well as the schematic design. I mentioned also too that we submitted to SED the 25% construction drawings on the 14th of March. And today we're asking for your approval of these 25% construction drawings. That's based on the fact that you look at our budget, our requirement, we have to be 95% aidable. So the budget as it stands is 96.4%. So we're beyond the threshold in the good. And if you take our estimate, which is about $1.2 million less than the budget, we stand to be 99% aidable. So it's a good news story all the way around. And again, we're on schedule, we're on budget, and we're meeting the needs we believe of the district. Any questions?
As you know, the process by which the process that was outlined in the statute that created phase 3 that we're involved in required these various submissions that Rick described and were described earlier. The other side of that is they need to get approved by SCD. That's why they're being submitted. And that has gone slowly. At some point in time here, we're going to run into a situation where you can't make any further progress. Now, they've got a lot to do, and I'm sure they're busy and working hard. I'm not implying anything to the contrary, but it does have it is going to have an impact here before long. We managed to get around it by continuing to work on this stuff, even though it's not going to improve. But we're getting to the point here very soon where that's not going to make any sense, particularly if we haven't developed a pattern of what gets approved and what doesn't. So, as good a news as this is, we need to make some progress in terms of getting this stuff approved. I'm optimistic that if we get it rolling, that things will do better because they'll be used to what we're submitting. We'll be used to what's important to them, and we can work our way through it. But ultimately, we've got to go faster because there is a terminal date with respect to the entire project, and that we're going to have to meet that. Okay, other questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, then we'll ask for the proposal that we be permitted to submit the 25% construction documents. I have another motion. Give them a break here. Think nobody else showed up here. How about a second?
I did a second.
There you go. All right. Thank you, folks. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, okay. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Edison Athletic Fields. You remember that we discussed last time shifting money from the East project to the Edison project in order to do some work with respect to the athletic fields. There has been a fair amount of work done with respect to, and we shared it with you last month, with respect to the appropriate work that needs to be done at Edison and some of the difficulties with the condition of the grounds and so forth. What we're doing here with these two items is we're approving extension of the two contracts for the construction manager and the architect to complete that work and to get it out for bid. Obviously, it was not included in the original contract since we didn't think that plan into the flat plan. So that's what's here. Pepin, do you want to talk any more about the specifics here?
I think you covered everything already. Again, this was presented to the board already. It's adding the scope. The amount we asked the board to add to CJS's existing contract is $843,500. And there's a memo on the screen that Ken is showing. That would bring the contract for CJS to $4,786,540, which includes amendment number 1. So they can go separately.
Yeah, they're in the minutes separately, so we. So with respect to the first item here, with respect to the CJS, which is architects for the project, are there any questions or comments?
Not just one, we had worked with Chris Jensen at the architect because of the size of it, and they've been able to increase all of their participation, with the exception of the SPs, the goal was normally down by 1%. Over the last month, substantially added, covered that additionally.
Good. Other comments or questions? Seeing or hearing none, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the amendment to the contract. Moves. And seconded. Any further questions or comments? Seeing or hearing none, then all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. The second one, for the construction manager.
The second one, the scope is the same. We were not able to reach agreement with the construction manager with their first proposal. The team went back and forth with them to reduce cost as best as possible. We were able to negotiate full value, but we're still not comfortable coming to you for the approval to award both pre-construction and construction administration to that. So we would like the board to just consider an amount of $85,720 to Buffalo Construction Consultants for the pre-construction work only necessary to renovate the existing playfields and create the facilities that the district is looking for. We will obviously come back to you when the time comes with the rest of the scope with another amendment, but for now, we only want to get your approval for the construction.
Amendment, what we're referring to.
Yes, that's the first amendment to both CJS and Buffalo Construction. And for Buffalo Construction, the amount is $85,720. That would bring their current contract value to $2,671,000.
So the essence of this is you feel that this keeps the thing going here while we further negotiate the long-term circumstance.
Yes, that is correct. We do have a proposal for the entire scope. The amount was $846,317. It came down from almost $1 million from what I remember. It was like 900 something, Terry.
Yeah, the real reason why we negotiated pre-construction is because they were basing their proposal on such a long duration. We felt the construction duration should be much shorter. But they really need to see some design before they could really fine tune that construction duration. So it was a win-win negotiating the pre-construction so that we could develop what that construction duration schedule was going to be, that they can base a better construction proposal on.
Okay. Other questions or comments? This is a nice part of the project, so it'll be fun to see it take shape. Hearing no other comments, then I'll entertain a motion to approve the addition to or amendment to the contract as proposed. It's been moved and seconded. Any further comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye. Okay. That gets us to the last item here. Back to the short-term financing. As you know, the way in which this project is funded is a bifurcated kind of system. In the long run, it's funded with regular bonds that are issued and paid over a long period of time. 95% of that would be paid by the state of New York. The rest of it 5% would be paid by the district. But in order to issue those bonds, you need to get a series of approvals necessary from SED and from the controller. You need to develop the design and the commitment to the specific projects so that the financing itself can be tied to the actual work itself. And then bonded. So that's the bifurcation. The first part of that, the part that needs to be done to prepare for the permanent financing, has to get paid somehow. It gets reimbursed out of the bonds. Ultimately, it's part of the total project. But it needs to come from someplace for that. Up until now, the money has come from the district, which made a non-interest loan and that funded the work. That loan gets paid back as soon as we issue financing of some nature, permanent or temporary. So the proposal that's before you here today proposes an alternate way to do that. The district has decided, or at least contemplated, that they don't want to advance any more money. They have their own issues they need to deal with. That's something that's continued to be talked about. But one of the ways that this has been done in the past, in fact, it was done in both of the previous phases, is to issue a bond anticipation note. In other words, a short-term note borrowing that is in anticipation of the permanent bonds that are taken out and is paid back that way. It's a relatively, as financing goes, inexpensive way. The city does such financing routinely. And so what would happen is we would get in line with the city, and in one of their bond sales, we would issue bonds in the same category. I say we, actually the city actually issues them. So that means that the district would be paid back. In the future, we would be funded out of the proceeds of the bond anticipation note. And then when the project is at the point where the permanent financing could occur, bonds would be sold, everything paid back, and we would proceed to fund the construction itself through the bonds. The dates for those things are a little bit flexible in this sense that what really has to happen is you need to get some permanent bond financing before you start doing construction. Because first of all, that's a commitment to it. But second of all, it's when you start spending the real money. And you need to have money in here through the bonds that's enough to make those kinds of payments. It would be many times what happened here. And so that's where we are. And what we're proposing here today is that you authorize the short-term financing. You're not authorizing us to do it. You're authorizing the district and the city and us to do it. And obviously all of those parties have to agree. You may remember some time ago, there was an agreement with the city and with the school district and us that is set out this process that I just described. And so everybody would understand before we get started here, what the rules would be and who got reimbursed when and those kinds of things. So that's already in place. The reason for needing it today is if this, as far as I know, this is going to go forward, but it's possible that it won't. But simply because of the mechanics or one of the parties not comfortable with it. But what we need to do to make sure we reduce the cost of financing is to go to market at the same point in time that the city does. The city issues bonds or bond anticipation notes, and they get one twice a year, usually in June and then I think in February. So we're getting up against the June date here. And it's much less expensive in terms of the issuance cost and all the costs associated with it if you do it all at once. And so that's why we're trying to move this along. Obviously, if for some reason the decision is made to do this differently, we'll be back to you. But I'm here today to get it authorized from the board so that we're not in a situation where we mess this thing up in terms of timing. And we're largely neutral on this issue. we need the money, we need to get the money, but whether we get it from a band or whether we get it from the district in some more direct way, it is somewhat is immaterial to us. And it doesn't, and the expenses associated with it are borne by the city, or excuse me, by the district. But it is important to do it in the way that's the less expensive, so because everything we don't spend on financing, we put in the project. So we want to try to be as attentive to the details here as we can be, to make sure we minimize the cost of the project itself. So that's what we got. Pepin, you want to add anything to that here?
Yes, sir. I think you covered it all again. The only thing I would add is, Kim, if you could bring up the cash flow projections for me. So far, the Chairman Richards has asked me to do a cash flow projection to kind of identify the needs. And I did that based on the schedule for the program and looked at what we've spent to date and what we expect to spend in the future. So I won't go through all the details and bore you with that, but if you look at the bottom of the sheet, I'll just scroll down a little bit, Tim, you'll see that we've estimated the cash flow needs per quarter. And Chairman Richards just mentioned that the school district has advanced proceeds to the program, to the RJSCB. And so far, we spent a 9.04 million. So approximately 9 million have been expended since approval of the phase 3 program in 21. And this was done through a series of interest-free loans from the district. So if you look at the first quarter of 2026, the cumulative amount that is needed is about 38.5 million, rounded to about 39. If after Chairman Richards' presentation, the district decides to go out and issue a one-year note, then 39 million would be needed in the first quarter of 26, say around March. Since the district wants to, if the district decides not to do a ban, obviously there's going to be loans until we reach the 39. But in the meantime, that's what's needed. There are a couple of meetings scheduled, and I also put a process flow chart together to kind of look at the timing in case a ban would be floated for June or July. Not sure if you have that, Kim.
So you want to switch to the other?
Yes, please. So,
Pepin, before you put.
sure, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was
Sorry.
going to say before you put that down.
Right.
That chart continues often to the point where we do corporate financing, right?
Yes.
Maybe you could show the board that to illustrate what we've been talking about here.
Sure, thank you. Would you be able to increase the font a little bit? If you look at the bottom, the blue part of it, cell AC 21 through 23, you'll see the current financial plan with the New York State Controller shows that we would go to market in May of 26 for the first tranche of the serial bonds. Obviously, the financial plan will be revised if the district wants to go a different direction in terms of loan versus ban or ban versus loan. So as Chairman Richards explained, once we go to market after we receive commission approval, then that first tranche of the long-term debt would pay back a ban if there's a ban, or would pay back the district for all the advances and all costs related to the ban, obviously, and repaid loans from the serial bonds would be the responsibility of the district, with 95% aid reimbursement paid by New York State. So, the next tranche, if this remained true, would be, going to market for the second tranche, in 2027 for one or two projects.
March of 26th is the D-Day in this particular chart.
Yes, sir. March 26th is definitely the D-Day for this one, for the first tranche. So once we have, enough funds and commissioner approval for the first two or three projects, then we're good to go. We can structure the debt and we do, debt versus aid model, allowing us to delay the second tranche or the third tranche, based on what the district wants to do. And if anybody is interested in this, cash flow, we can certainly, share it later. But for now, those are estimates. And I wanted to make sure, I covered the entire life cycle of the project. If you could scroll to the right a bit more, Tim, you'll see the final tranche would be, around the third quarter to fourth quarter of 2028. One thing you'll see in this document also, I showed the, historical borrowings. If you could go back to the left and look at cells around B34. So that shows you, what was done in phase two. And I wanted to show you that for phase two, there was a ban for $32 million that was issued on February 16, 2017. And the first tranche of the phase two serial bonds, which was sold in 2017 for $123 million. We paid that ban and any outstanding loans that the district had advanced to the RJSCB. So again, there were three tranches in phase two. Right now, the current financial plan with the state in Albany is showing three tranches, but that will be revised if the board, the joint board, or the school board want to change this to two tranches based on the current market conditions, the volatility of the market, then this could be two tranches instead of three. And this will allow you to save money on interests. Again, the district is paying the capitalized interests. We want to make sure we optimize and make sure there are savings as soon as there's an opportunity. So all this work assumes that, of course, the district will prepare the swing spaces. It's not part of the program. Also assumes a traditional maximum cost allowance would be double for all 6 phase 3 projects. It also assumes there are no additions in the program. I believe, Wally or Terry, there's still a small addition for the secure entry vestibule. And that's something we need to discuss with the state if they want us to isolate and identify that as an addition, but it's going to be part of the entire gut reno since Wilson was classified as a gut renovation project. There was no district-wide technology in phase 3 that was removed in the statute. The legislation was not allowed for that. So PM fees, soft costs, planning studies, PLA study, et cetera, and the ICO program management, all those costs have been distributed among each of the 6 projects. And we will structure them in a way that the aid still remains at least 95% per the statutory requirement. So the historical data is there for the phase 2 borrowings. It shows the events, it shows the band, and it shows the long-term debt issuance.
You can see the need to pay real close attention to these budget numbers and why we're spending so much time and effort on it at this point. Because when you get to the edge of Pepin's cash flow here, you get to that $470 million number, you fall off a cliff. That's the end of it. You know, and there is no flexibility with it. There's no place else to go. So we have to work back from that in addition to working forward from the work we want to do to make sure that when we get there, that's what happens. It is what's happened in the first 2 phases, but it needs to happen in this one as well. and the time to be thinking about that. It's unfortunately closer to now than it is to the month you were filing for. And find out the number wasn't right. So, that'll be it. Show the one other thing, the schedule, even though we're not necessarily gonna follow every detail of it. But it gives the board some sense of what the sequence is here.
So the other document, Chairman Richard asked me to put together was a, process flow chart, which you can see on the screen. So the first two circles show the loans that were advanced by the district. So that's old news. We don't need to cover that. We had a meeting with, the school district's finance departments and the city of Rochester, to kind of structure how this interim financing would play out. And that happened on April 3rd. We were hoping that the RJSCB could pass a resolution tonight to authorize the issuance of that one-year ban. If that happens, then we would ask the school district's Board of Education to take action at their next business meeting. There are a few meetings, I believe, Mr. Scott, for the Board of Ed. One of them is April 24th. The next one is a special meeting for adopting the budget. That's on May 6th. And the next business meeting would be May 22nd. So if one of those dates, the district decides to authorize a short-term note, then city council would take the RJSCB's resolution from tonight's meeting and take the school district's certified resolution at one of their meetings, whether it's in April or May, to authorize and do an ordinance for either May 20th or the next city council meeting on June 17th. So if city council introduces legislation on April 29th, we almost guarantee that we would be able to close a ban in June. If that doesn't happen in this month, then the ban would be closed in July of 25. So this flow chart kind of gives you the key dates that the chairman wanted me to show you as part of the process from beginning to end of the ban.
In addition to the dates, it gives you some sense of the relationships here, you know, what we have to do in order to get through this process. Okay. That's it, Pepper?
Yep, that's it for that.
So that's the proposal that we have with respect to the ban. Are there questions or comments about it? Seeing any, I'll entertain a motion to approve it as proposed.
The motion.
Got a motion, Amelia, you,
Second.
Hamilton. Other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate your understanding of needing to work our way through this. The ICO report.
Good afternoon. As of March 26th, we have 100% of all the records in for the whole project. The data for the month of February 2005 is as follows. We've had a total of 22,553 hours worked on the project for phase 3. Breakdown of those are minority hours for the reporting period are 915, non-minority women 713, non-minority males 1,908 hours, for a total of 3,537. When we compare our overall statistics, both traditional, when we look at it, minorities, both male and female, we have a goal of 23%, currently at just over 47%. Women, non-minority only, we have a goal of 7%, and we're currently at 8.28. But when we break this out and we look at minority males, goal of 23%, we're at just over 32%, 32.32. Women, all women, minority and not minority, we have a goal of 7%. We're currently at 23.10. Our business participation and utilization numbers, we have a total contract values awarded to date of $58,730,000, of which we have 34% of that are to MBEs. Just under 5% of that are to WPEs. Our SBE, we have a goal of 2%, and we're at 4.52. And our DBE, we have a goal of 2%, and we are at 0.75. When we look at, although there's not a requirement for City of Rochester residents, we do track the workforce's location of the residents. We have 13 Rochester residents that were active with the project working during the month, which reflects 14.29%, for a total of 91 individuals who work on the project. Any questions?
Okay, seeing none.
Just, I'm sorry, one thing. I met a DBE for you at the conference that might be good for you to fill that DBE on your DP1.
Oh,
They work downstate. All right.
Good. Yeah, anybody who's got anybody that they know of who would help us with respect to the project, might participate, let us know. Let Brian know.
Yep, you could say, Mr. Chairman, that the public is interested in this program already. We have a new MBE owner of JT Morrow. He's in public. Jeremy, if you want to go ahead. And Marshall, I believe, is the Chief Operating Officer with JT Morrow. So they're interested and they are working towards their certification. So you may want to talk to them, Brian.
we already did.
You already did. Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Okay, the program manager's report and the fund balance report here.
Thank you, Chairman Richards. I'll quickly go through the report. This is the tracking for the budget for the RJSCB for this fiscal year. And as you will see, we are under budget for our vendors. With Anshin at 156,000, we are against a 121,645.25 actual. 156,000 for BSK with $68,910.50 actual, and 3,462,000 for Savin against a $3,129,732.85 actual. Again, that is tracking this fiscal year, and we are currently under budget. For the fund balance report, our last disbursement was still March 27th of $3 million. That gave us an account balance of $3,288,167.02. When you subtract the current month pay requisition of $862,427.14, that leaves a remaining balance of $2,425,739.88. Our current spend on the program to date is $9,039,605. When you look at our charts, the RJSCB held funds, again, these are discretionary funds for the RJSCB from an AG settlement, Attorney General settlement. That balance remains at $330,648. Our RJSCB only expenses also remain static for insurance and audit for $17,986. The activity is in our RSMP admin expenses, which are the three vendors I just mentioned, Bond, Shonik and King, Anshin, and Savin. There is a $5,119,352 spend of 13% against a budget of $35,657,842. The remaining soft costs, because there are no hard costs at this time, are $3,902,267 against a $439,342,158 budget. If you add the two together for those admin expenses, the two budgets, you will arrive at the $475 million total.
Okay. Questions or comments for Kim? Pepper, the project manager report.
Um, just as last month, there are no hard cost expenditures until projects are bid and contractors are on board. If we go all the way down to the incidentals, you'll see that, the 9 million that I mentioned earlier is, what's paid to date as of the last requisition that, the RJSCB processed with the city and the district. The incidentals are 7.1% complete. We still have 92.86% to complete as far as the incidentals. If you look at the overall, the grand totals, deducting the 9,039,605 from the 475 authorized limit, we have a balance to finish of 465,960,395. The overall program is 1.9% complete, and we still have 98.1% to go. So that's the budget summary versus expenditures. As far as the PM report, the financial plan, as I mentioned earlier, is still with the controller's office. They have reached out to the RJSCB, notably Kim Mitchell, for questions they had. We answered some of those questions, but the rest of them could not be answered until we know what the district direction is with the band versus the loans. Once that happens, we'll revise the financial plan a third time and resubmit it to the New York State Controller. As far as other submissions, SCD said not to submit anything else on school number 9 until they provide comments to us on the preliminary schematic submission that's been submitted. As far as the Wilson commencement, the SCD target was March 31st, but there was redesign required to adjust the scope and the cost. And we were also waiting for signatures on the construction specialty forms, which I believe the adjustments were made. And we are gonna set up a meeting with Chief Swan and others in the district to get sign off from the school districts and the SCD Regional Associate, so we can make the preliminary schematic submission to the state. You received the SCD documents for the idea Franklin schematic design. That presentation was made earlier. As far as other design updates, the Edison campus will receive the structural assessment report from SDH. Had a few meetings with the district facilities department. It will provide comments to them. A couple of rounds of reviews. We have a document that we feel comfortable with, but there's a cost associated with that report that we're mulling with the district's facilities department and Chief Scott to see where we can implement the recommendations that we got from the structural engineer in regards to the superstructure at Edison. And I know Brian Peanut spent a lot of time with those guys. Is there anything you want to add briefly?
So far, three coming down from FDA, after going back and forth with them in terms of the recommendation, final submission to the recommendation for having tier 1, we call it the tier 1 repair, valued at just over $9 million. to get back the building in a reasonable condition. That repair, he can do, we want to do the entire, grade level. And fixing the bucket for the better system as well as the building. Some amount of structural steel and repairing some of the broken elements. There's also a tier 2 option, which is they consider that to be not as priority as stage 1. Tier 2 option includes fixing the end of external pocket for the potential system on the upper level. That cost amounts to over $8 million. It's not priority, so this is that they will go with those priorities. What the tier 1, 9 something million, just that additional $8 million.
Thank you, Brian. So, as far as
Obviously, we're gonna be having to do some rebudgeting, and that is, and so we'll be back to you to see how we accommodate those structural issues. The other things we want to do is and where the money comes from. But at least we have a baseline now, we're comfortable with, and we've addressed this issue that's been sort of hanging over the school for some time.
Chairman, this is additional to the base number.
Yes. I don't know that we had a number exactly of our own this, but we knew it was substantial. And of course, we're talking here about structural aspects of the building. There'll be some bracing kind of stuff that will go on there. You know, gotta be done. So we're gonna have to figure it out to accommodate.
No, their hands are big, budgeted by money. This certainly updates.
Yeah. Yes, please.
see, the project's milestone schedule obviously will be updated by Terry O'Conte once, we resolve the scope and, budget transfer issue. Okay. So, as far as the program verification, report, that will integrate the new athletic field replacement and structural reconstruction that we talked about earlier. And we will have the architect, make a presentation to you, with, the recommendations and, budget revisions. As procurement of professional services, I think there's a lot to talk about, Terry, in light of, the structural report that we got.
And in the fields.
So we're gonna move up some of those dates and reduce the timeline that was allocated for the East project. And Douglas is right behind it. With regard to the project labor agreement, Chairman Richards and I met with the leadership of the Rochester Building Trades and Construction Council, to kind of let them know that we are drafting an agreement for the board's consideration. That agreement was also reviewed by General Counsel at Bonchonek and King. And Terry and I provided a long list of comments. We're waiting for the PLA consultant to react to those comments from all three of us, Terry, myself, and BSA. Then we'll go back to the chairman to see if we can start a conversation again with other members of the unions. Once we have an agreement that we're comfortable with, Chairman Richards will come to you to decide on a PLA or not. Anything else you want to add? Oh, yeah. So master schedule, Terry, high level, too long since.
Really, the update this month.
Terry, you guys have to speak into the microphone over there.
So really this month, the update was, call it a normal one, the only out of normal update. That was the Wilson where we needed another 2 to 3 weeks to account for the redesign of the budget. So, we'll be ready with, 5% documents on May 9th versus the original schedule was, around the 13th of April. So that's the highlight of the differences in the update. Everything else stayed on schedule.
The last item is the serial bond refunding opportunity. I shared an update with the school district's finance department on what the savings would look like. Again, based on what's happening on Wall Street, those numbers are fluctuating, but there are significant savings by refunding the callable bonds that are becoming due. So it's in the district's court. Once there's legislation in place to move forward with this opportunity, then we'll take action. And that concludes my report.
Help us to pay for Edison.
Yeah, that, you know.
Questions for Kevin? Anything else to come before us? Seeing or hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.
It's not due till